If they lose the national championship game, if they make the championship and they lose, I still think that's a success. Shoot, I still think it's a success if they lose to UConn in a nail biter game. Welcome back, everyone. This is Bando's Breakdowns, episode 84. Hope you are doing well. My name is Zain Bando. Thank you so much for joining me. A few quick reminders before we get started on this Friday afternoon, Friday, April 3rd, 2026, the day before the Final Four gets underway in Indianapolis. Please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the ETB Network. To do so, youtube.com/ETB Network would be greatly appreciated if you smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss a single episode of this show or any other show that is across the network as well. Would be greatly appreciated if you did so. And of course, give this podcast a 5-star review because it tells me that you really like the content that I'm putting out. There's more content to be had. There's going to be some more guests on in the coming weeks and months, so stay tuned. Put this under RSS feeds wherever you get your podcasts. Would be greatly appreciated if you guys did so as well. And of course, you can follow the show across social media at Bando's Breakdown for all the latest clips following the episode and in the days ahead leading up to the newest edition of the show, as we do every single week. So, without further ado, my name is Zain Bando. I'm a sports journalist and ETB Network co-host. You can check me out several places, including the Sporting News, Field Mobile Media, and of course the On Sports Illustrated Network as well, across a few different sites. And I guess I can say this now. I no longer cover the WNBA. It's really unfortunate to say that, but we had some structural changes. So now it's going to be combat sports. We're going to do a little bit of NFL and college football over there, but unfortunately no longer formally covering the WNBA. So we'll see if that changes in the coming months, but that's the latest career update, is that I'm no longer covering the Wings, unfortunately. And it was a decision that was out of my control, as well as everybody else involved with the site. So it is what it is, and hopefully we can move forward, and hopefully there's going to be some new opportunities to come. But it was cool to cover the Wings while it lasted, and of course, with the season around the corner, it's a little bit unfortunate, but we move on, we live and we learn, and we move right past it. So there we go. So that's a little bit of a career update. But nonetheless, though, let's get into the show itself, because we have a big show this week, and I have a pretty big announcement to make midway through the show as well, so stay tuned for that. Before we get into anything that was Zan's overview, what we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking a lot about the Final Four in this episode. We're going to do a full preview of the Final Four. I'll give you my predictions for the 2 semifinal games taking place from Lucas Oil Stadium this Saturday. We're going to go over the matchups. We're going to go over some ticket data that I have firsthand from some people that are close to the situation at hand, specifically TickPick. So we'll go into some data there. So shout out to them for providing that data to me, some new information, which should be exciting, and to talk about some of these price ranges and what you should do if you have or have not already purchased tickets to the Final Four. By the time this is coming out, you might as well have already purchased your tickets or have decided to pass on going to Saturday's action given the prices, but we'll go over that. We will also go over some UFC stuff. We'll go over a brief NBA story. We'll also go over a Zinger that's related to the Final Four. And we'll do a few other things too, barring time constraints. But let's not waste any more time. So speaking of March Madness, we're in the Final Four this weekend. Of course, it's Saturday night and Monday night from Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. The first game we're going to talk about is the rematch from this past Black Friday. The UConn Huskies, the number 2 seed in the East region, taking on the Illinois Fighting Illini, the number 3 seed in the South region. Again, winner moves on to the national championship. UConn looking for its 3rd national title in as many years. Illinois looking to go back to the national title game for the first time since 2005. It's the first time under Brad Underwood that Illinois has made the Final Four, and it's also Brad Underwood's first ever Final Four appearance. Let's talk about this game at hand here because there's a lot to unpack. Illinois has looked like a totally different team since the beginning of the NCAA tournament. So to kind of piggyback where we were less than a month ago here, Illinois looked like it was on the downswing. It lost to Wisconsin in the first game of the Big Ten tournament. And of course, a very fun fact in college basketball history, which could still reign true by the time the weekend is over, is that no team has ever won a national title after losing its first game in the conference tournament. So Illinois has a chance to be that team to make that history if it's able to win the national title this weekend. But let's talk about Illinois now, just from an overall standpoint. So it loses to Wisconsin. It enters the NCAA tournament rather, having won 4 of 9 games going into the big dance, and then all of a sudden, just they look like a totally different basketball team. Ball movement, rebounding, physicality, maintaining leads, just all-time stuff from Illinois. Keaton Wagler playing out of his mind. Davin Merkovic playing out of his mind. The Ivasiches are playing really well. And then Andrei Stojakovic off the bench has been gigantic for this Illinois team. And you want to talk about one of the best bench presences, if you will, in college basketball. I think Stojakovic is it. And Illinois has looked like a totally different team. Brad Underwood has his guys wired. He has them ready to go. He lets them be loose. He lets them have fun. And as he likes to say, let it rip. And I think Illinois is going to have to do that in order to knock off a UConn team that just simply has a lot of firepower. You obviously have Braylon Mullins, who, of course, hit the big shot to beat Duke. And then, of course, you also have Alex Caravan and several other just perimeter pieces that are going to make Illinois' defensive game plan pretty difficult. But if Illinois can stay within that 6-7 point cushion pretty much the whole game, or even lead for much of the first half, I think it'll have a chance to stun UConn and go to the national championship. The line earlier in the week was 3.5, and most books now have it at Illinois minus 1.5. I'm just going to say this now. I really like Illinois to go to the national title game for a few reasons. Number one, Illinois knows, and it's known all year, that it can get to the Final Four. There's a famous clip. You'd have to go back into the archives. What's now going to be famous because of where Illinois has ended up. But there's a clip now which has resurfaced a couple of times. Can't find it offhand at the moment, but it's from November, and it's after Illinois lost to UConn the first time, we can say now with clarity. And it's Underwood in the locker room saying, you guys have a chance to be a Final Four team. You just have to believe that you're a Final Four team, okay? And at the time, they didn't know how good they really were, okay? And I'm sure for the most part, UConn didn't know how good it really was itself. So I think that's really cool. And also Dan Hurley, I just got to give him a shout out. He revealed in his final local media press conference before his Indianapolis responsibilities began that he texted Underwood shortly after that Black Friday game when UConn won by double digits and said, hey, I really like your team. Let's meet in Indy. And no, he didn't mean for a drink. He meant to play in the Final Four, and look at how divine intervention just kind of happened that way. I think it's really interesting that foreshadow is now coming true. So I think all the stars are aligning. I think there's a lot of talent on both sides for these two teams, but I just think Illinois is a little bit better. I think they have a little bit more raw talent. I think Underwood has his guys poised. They're a nasty team. They played a really tough schedule. They play, to me, in the toughest league in college basketball. And this is no disrespect to the Big East or any of these other conferences, but when you have 9 teams out of the Big Ten that made this tournament, and you have 2 Big Ten teams left standing in Michigan and Illinois, 2 teams that already played each other earlier this season and have a chance to do so potentially Monday night when all the chips are finally on the table and it's all said and done, That's a huge, huge, huge potential advantage there. And also, even though this is kind of a cliche answer, I think the crowd advantage is going to be gigantic. I think a lot of these fans are going to be Illinois fans. I really do. I think Illinois and Michigan are going to be two of the biggest fan bases there. And to me, it's not even close with how proximity wise these two schools operate from one another and how close Indianapolis is of a drive as opposed to a flight for UConn and Arizona. So I think that's going to be a huge benefit. I think Illinois wins this game, and I think they do so by between 8 and 10 points. Let's go with a final score of 76-68. Illinois gets the job done. It makes its free throws late, and then a Keaton Wagler three seals the deal to punch Illinois' ticket to its first national title appearance in 21 years. And who will it play? Well, that leads me to my next prediction. So, in the second game, which a lot of people are saying is the real national championship game between a loaded Michigan team led by Yaxel Landenberg, Morez Johnson Jr., Adai Mara, Will Cheddar, and a very, very good supporting cast, a very well-coached team by Dusty May, against an Arizona team that has come out of nowhere and has used youth and stability to get to this point. And I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to be point blank. I've not watched enough Arizona basketball for me to fully go deep into them. But what I can tell you is this. I've watched Michigan a ton of times this year in person, and now I have to go back and think about how many times I've watched them. I think it's about 6. So let me briefly go through this. So I saw them play Northwestern, which they won. I saw them play Illinois, which they won. I saw them play Ohio State, which they won. I saw them play, let's see, I saw them play in the championship against Purdue, which they won. I saw its game against Alabama, which they won. And of course, I saw its game against Tennessee. In every single game, minus Purdue, Michigan looked like the superior team. And Colin Cowherd said it very well. Colin Cowherd could not have said it better himself. He said the passing for Michigan looked like an NBA level of dominance, which is hard to argue with, considering that everything they did was to a near perfect tee. They were up by 30 on Tennessee, 25 to 30 points before you could even blink. They had Alabama into submission pretty much with 8 minutes to go in regulation. And even though Alabama tried to catch up a little bit, it didn't do them any favors. And of course, Michigan pulled away and won the game. So my point in saying this is this. Arizona may be a very good battle-tested team. They played in a very difficult Big 12. But to me, I think size matters. And you can't rely on a freshman to carry an entire team. You just can't. You have a veteran presence in Michigan. You have guys that are bound for the NBA in the near future, if not in this upcoming draft. And to me, the only thing that's stopping Michigan from beating Arizona is themselves. And I think they're going to do it. I think it's going to be a great game. Some people have jokingly said it's going to go into 3 overtimes. I don't think so. Will we need overtime? I don't think so. But I do think Michigan does enough to win this game. I think it's going to be 87-83. Michigan advances to Monday night in Indianapolis for the would-be national championship game. And if we were to kind of go back here for a second and pick that hypothetical national championship game between Michigan and Illinois, and obviously by the time this comes out, we'll have no idea who's in the national championship. But while I'm here, I'll make a hypothetical pick here because by the time we do episode 85, it'll be time to recap the championship game. I think Michigan beats Illinois, and it's for a couple of reasons. Number one, Michigan is just too talented. When they get a lead, they don't squander it away. That's number one. Number two, Dusty May gave me a very insightful answer about March habits into April habits. In 2 years, he has turned this program from an irrelevant program that was under the ghost of Juwan Howard to a program now that simply can't be beat regardless of who it plays. That's a dangerous program in itself. And I'm going to be honest with you. As an Illinois alumnus, as someone who now covers the team, as someone who used to be a member of the Orange Crush, if they lose the national championship game, if they make the championship and they lose, I still think that's a success. Shoot, I still think it's a success if they lose to UConn in a nail biter game, because Illinois wasn't supposed to be in this position. All the experts had them losing in the Sweet 16. I thought they would lose in the Sweet 16 too. Luckily, Illinois got the right draws. They made the right adjustments when they needed to, when the postseason began, and look at where Illinois is now. I am comfortable saying that Michigan is simply better than Illinois at the moment. And if Michigan loses to Arizona, then we can have a different discussion. But for now, if I were to pick my hypothetical, I would say Michigan beats Illinois in the national championship game, and it's going to be a game to remember because Illinois will certainly look a whole lot different than it did in February. I'm going to guarantee you that, and I can also say with confidence that this Illinois team, the version that's playing right now, will give UConn a better game. I am almost 1,000% positive to say that. They will give UConn a better game Saturday night at Lucas Oil Stadium. There is no way in the world that Illinois is getting to this position and saying, oh, we're going to go full now. So I'm just going to say this, bank on Illinois playing Monday night. And if I'm wrong, I will come on here next week and the week after as the dust settles and say I was wrong. But the team that I've seen this postseason, they look like a team that's going to be playing Monday night. So there you go. Speaking of the Final Four, I haven't really spoken about this publicly yet, but yes, I will be at the Final Four in Indianapolis. At the time that we're recording this, the preliminary plan is, should Illinois win, I will be there Monday night. And if Illinois loses, I will only be there for a short stint, but I will be at the Final Four. I will be covering it, so stay tuned to social media and my written portfolio as well for all the details from that. We're getting there mid-Saturday afternoon, and tip-off of the first game is at 6:09 Eastern. I can't wait. It's my second Final Four. If you guys remember, the first Final Four I went to was as a fan. It was in 2024. That year it was UConn, Purdue, Alabama, and NC State. Of course, UConn won the national championship. As you guys remember, that was their back-to-back championship. And then, of course, Florida won it this past season. And now this year, UConn has a chance to win it again. So it'll be my second Final Four in 3 seasons. So looking very forward to it. Should be awesome. I know a few people that are making the trip. Not a lot of people are. It's a very difficult ticket to get. And speaking of tickets, let's go through some of these numbers according to TickPick, as well as what a few industry sources have said about TickPick and just overall what is going on. So as of Monday, according to TickPick, this is the most expensive Final Four on record with an average purchase price of $706, which is 52% more expensive than last year's Final Four. The current get-in price is $456. Obviously, depending on where you look, it's a lot different. With the biggest purchase on TickPick being 3 tickets in section 114, row T, for $7,859 a ticket. And just as a reminder, the games are at Lucas Oil Stadium, which means we're going to be playing basketball in a football stadium, regardless of how you feel about that. Illinois, UConn, and Arizona, Michigan ranked number 1. As I just alluded to, the Final Four that I went to in 2024, which was that UConn, Alabama, Purdue, North Carolina State game, or weekend, rather, comes in at 6:09. 2022, Kansas, Villanova, Duke, UNC, 592. 2017, Gonzaga, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Oregon, 520. And then this past year's Final Four, which was unbelievable, Florida, Auburn, Duke, and Houston, 464. So there you go. Shout out to this data info that was sent to me regarding TickPick as well. And I actually also have a quote that I would love to read to you guys from Kyle Zorn of TickPick, the director of content. Illinois and Arizona's fan bases are driving a significant portion of overall demand for the Final Four. Since the matchups were set, nearly half of all purchases have come from those two states. Both teams haven't made it this far in over 20 years, and we typically see these long droughts have a major impact on overall demand, which is really, really good to hear. That's really, really good to hear. So, if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, go get your tickets. And if you have your tickets, enjoy. Hopefully they get scanned properly, and hopefully you guys can enjoy some unbelievable college basketball over a 48-hour period. All right, let's transition over to some UFC now, as we're kind of going to take a break from the basketball side. So, UFC Seattle was an unbelievable card. We had several finishes on the card. Pretty sure 9 of the 13 fights were finishes. We went 8-4-1 for UFC Seattle this past weekend. So we're doing pretty well on UFC predictions as well as we go into the month of April. So that's really exciting. Israel Adesanya loses to Joe Pyfer in the second round of the main event of UFC Seattle. And without question, the biggest win of Joe Pyfer's career. Israel Adesanya still has not won a fight in several years since losing the middleweight championship once again, this time at the hands of Sean Strickland way back when in 2023. So that was UFC Seattle in a nutshell. Going into UFC Vegas 115, let's take a look at my overall UFC record for the year so far, as I don't remember it offhand. We are pulling it up right now, but we do have an event coming up this weekend from the Apex, not talked about as highly, but it is happening. The main event of the evening is Renato Moicano versus Chris Duncan. Of course, Renato Moicano famously took a fight on short notice a year ago against Islam Makhachev in place of Arman Tarzukian. And speaking of Arman Tarzukian, he has a grappling match coming up at the next RAF event opposite former WEC legend Uriah Faber. So congratulations to him on that, remaining active in the combat sports arena while he awaits his next UFC fight. All right, let's take a look at the record of me post UFC Seattle. So let's do that. So we are 67, 48, and 1, and we have Jack Gold at 79, 36, and 1 going into UFC Vegas 115. It'll be the 10th UFC event of the year so far. And let's take a look at the card itself. It should be a pretty good card for the hardcore fans. 5 Eastern start is per usual for the prelims, followed by the main card. It's another 13-fight card. It's been a common theme here. Let's take a look at the main event. Renato Moicano 27-1 versus Chris Duncan 15-2. It's a lightweight fight if we've ever seen one. Number 9 versus number 34, according to Tapology. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape. Renato Moicano is a plus 165 underdog. At the time that we're recording this, he's won 3 of his last 5. Well, Chris Duncan comes back as a minus 205 favorite, winning 4 of his last 5 fights, 36 versus 32, 5'11 versus 5'10. And of course, American Top Team and MXP Fitness are the main camps at hand. And in fact, Chris Duncan also spends time in American Top Team as well. According to the Tapology community, a lot of people like Chris Duncan at 67%, according to as opposed to Moicano's 33%. Some other fights on the card as well. Verna Jandiroba, Tabitha Ricci, Rakhman Yukayev versus Hibero is another one. Estevam versus Ewing. McMillan versus Sahini. Ruchella versus Delano. Pat versus Peterson, and a bunch of others. But going back to the prediction, though, I like Chris Duncan to get the job done. Moicano's just been too inconsistent as of late. Not really liking his lackadaisical fighting style as of late. Meanwhile, Chris Duncan, 6-1 in the UFC, winner of his last 4 in a row, with 3 of them coming by submission. His last win coming against Terrence McKinney at 2:30 of the opening round. Some other finishes. Jordan Vucenic by guillotine, and of course, Bulaji Oki by guillotine as well. The only decision in there is Mateusz Rebecki. That was back in August of last year, and that actually was a fight of the night bonus that night for that particular UFC Fight Night event. So that's going to do it for UFC Vegas 115 for now, but it's a 13 fight card from the Apex in the middle of the Final Four chaos. If you want to tune in, you could do so. The entire card is on Paramount Plus, beginning at 5 Eastern, followed by the main card. Speaking of the UFC as well, Nate Diaz turned down a trilogy fight with Conor McGregor for a very logical reason. And that logical reason, as revealed earlier this week, was that Nate Diaz did not want to fight Conor McGregor on his quote-unquote last dying leg, okay? He wanted to fight Charles Oliveira for the BMF title. The UFC said, no, we want you to fight Conor McGregor. And, of course, Nate Diaz ultimately opted to fight for most valuable promotions. So let's talk about what this means. I think Nate Diaz is thinking very smartly because he knows that titles, regardless of if they're legit or not, are only going to make his star power bigger at this point in his career. He knows he's already beaten Conor McGregor. The trilogy is kind of old news at this point. You know, it's 10 years, too late now. You probably could have done the trilogy in 2020 or 2021 or 2022, but now in 2026, with McGregor not having fought since July of 2021, it's a little bit lackluster now. So now, he wants to look in a different direction, and I can't really blame him. He can stay active with a fight that he really wants and a fight that he thinks he can win. And there you go. I mean, that's literally what he's doing. So can you really blame him? I don't think you can. So that only limits McGregor's options even further. Who knows who McGregor is even remotely fighting next? But what I can tell you is, for the most part, is that this trilogy is never happening. So we shall see what transpires from this. But that's the latest update, is that Nate Diaz turned down a trilogy fight with Conor McGregor. And who knows if that fight will ever happen. And at this point, given that he already turned it down, his chances of fighting him look like they're slim. His chances of him getting back in the UFC, however, seem very, very likely, according to UFC CEO Dana White, if they can find the right matchup for him. All right, final few topics here. One thing I saw, Jaden Ivey waived by the Bulls, said some controversial comments in the media this week. And let's summarize them in the best way possible, because not a lot of people are very much in support of him, I guess. Let's see here. What's going on with this? So let's take a look here. I don't really like using this source, but Fox News did a story on, this is more of a summarization story here. NBA player Jaden Ivey went on a social media tirade after being waived from the Chicago Bulls on Monday. The Bulls claimed Ivey was waived for conduct detrimental to the team after he made comments critical of Pride Month, citing his Christian faith. In a series of Instagram live posts, Ivey gave his thoughts on being waived by the Bulls. And of course, as we know, Ivey used to play for the Pistons as well. They're liars, bro. This is lying, Ivey said in one Instagram live. They're lying by saying my conduct is detrimental to the team. That's a lie. Ask any one of them coaches out there, was I a good teammate? All I'm preaching about is Jesus Christ, and they waved me. They say I'm crazy, right? I'm psycho. Well, he goes on to say more things, right? And he basically said that he found God, okay? And he cites LeBron James and Steph Curry and whatever. So my thought process is this, okay? And this is simply a basketball standpoint. Right now, the Bulls aren't going anywhere, okay? There's all these rumors that Billy Donovan is going to leave Chicago anyway, okay? There's frustration in the front office. The fans don't like the front office. If the Bulls get rid of Jaden Ivey, which they have, I'm saying if the Bulls continue down this path of just tanking the whole team, which is essentially what they've done, okay? all I can really say about this is they're going to clean house anyway. So regardless of if he did these, regardless of if he was going to say these things or not, he was probably gone regardless. Okay, when a team is a non-factor, and when a franchise is going through just levels of futility that are just god awful, which a lot of the main Chicago sports columnists have alluded to, of course you're going to get an angle like this where it's really difficult to overcome, and clearly Ivy is going through his own struggles, right? And it is what it is. So my point is that he's going to need to figure out his help in the best way possible. Was it justified for the Bulls to get rid of him? Perhaps it was. At the same time, though, could people understand his position? Yeah. But again, as I alluded to, from a basketball standpoint, was he going to be the savior of the franchise? Absolutely not. I think within the next few days, it'll be a non-story. That's just my personal opinion. And the Bulls, I think, had a chance to do what they felt was right, and that's what they chose to do. And then finally, Zinger, Final Four games, simply put, guys, should be on CBS. Simple as that. I see a lot of TBS, TNT broadcasts. It should be on regular CBS. It should be viewed by as many people as possible. And I understand that people are going to say, oh, Zain, TNT, TBS, those are local channels. For some people, they aren't. CBS is an over-the-air broadcast station. There's no reason why CBS shouldn't be constantly carrying the Final Four. And in fact, to even validate my claim further, TBS, TNT, True TV, unreal, unbelievable. And I understand it's Turner Sports, but Final Four, I mean, hey, there's even a Reddit thread about it. Final Four only on cable TV. Go figure, guys. Go figure, Turner. You could be putting this on to millions of people, and which they're going to anyway, but you could be attracting millions more people than you already are, but instead you decide, oh yeah, great, we'll just throw it on CBS and it's no big, or we'll throw it on TNT and TBS and it's no big deal, and instead you take the accessibility of the fan right out of them, and now they have to go sniffing for it. Just my opinion. If the Super Bowl is on local TV, if the Stanley Cup Final is on local TV, if the NBA Finals are on local TV, there's no reason why the Final Four and or National Championship should be on local TV. No errors this week from me, and that's going to do it for another edition of Bando's Breakdowns. This has been episode 84. Thank you so much for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. Please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Empty the Bench podcast number. To do so, go to youtube.com/GTB Network. Would be greatly appreciated. Listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, my name is Zain Bando. I'm a sports journalist and ETB Network co-host. More fun stuff to come related to the show in the coming weeks and months and so much more. But until next week, I'm Zain Bando. For everybody here at the ETB Network, this has been another edition of BB. I will catch you guys next week to recap my entire Final Four in-person experience. Hopefully it ends up being that Illinois is in the national title game, but we shall see how everything transpires. Until next week, I'll catch you guys soon. Have a great weekend. Hopefully your bracket or your survivor pool is somewhat still alive, but if not, enjoy all the college basketball this Saturday, and I will catch you guys on the flip. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks, and cheers. Thanks so much.